On the 3rd of January, in the year 4159, the sun will not rise. Not over London, not over New York, not over the ocean, not over the mountains, nowhere on this earth. On that morning, the sky will simply stay black. I can't prove that to you, but here is the part that should bother you. Neither can you prove me wrong. Not really. Not without living another 2,000 years. You believe the sun will rise tomorrow. So do I. I believe it the way I believe my own name. And we believe it for what feels like the best reason in the world. Because it has risen every single morning of our lives. Every morning of our parents' lives. Every morning of every human life ever recorded, going back before there were people to write it down. Billions of sunrises, not one exception. And out of that enormous mountain of evidence, we draw the calmest, most obvious, most boring conclusion a human mind can reach. It always has, so it always will. And here's what I want to sit with you today, for the next little while. That conclusion, that reasonable, sensible, who could possibly argue with it conclusion, has no logical foundation whatsoever. None. Zero. A quiet Scottish philosopher pointed this out 275 years ago. And in nearly 3 centuries, nobody has ever answered him. Not really. For most of that time, we filed the whole thing under clever nonsense. The kind of thing you nod at in a philosophy seminar, and then forget about on the walk home. Because, obviously, the sun comes up. Obviously. This video is about what happened when physicists, not philosophers, physicists, people with equations and telescopes and particle detectors, went looking for the very bottom of reality. The bedrock, the floor beneath the floor, and found the philosopher already down there, waiting for them, sitting in the dark. I'm going to be honest with you now, the way I try to be at the start of these. This one does not have a comforting ending. This isn't me being dramatic to keep you watching. Take it as a disclaimer. By the end, I'm going to have taken something away from you. Something you didn't know you were holding. So if you're the kind of person who'd rather not have your Tuesday morning coffee ruined by a small, permanent crack running through the foundation of everything, this might be the moment to close the tab. Still here? Good. Let's go find the bottom. Let me start somewhere gentle. Let me start with a turkey. I got this from a book. I'll be upfront about my sources today because this whole video is really a stack of books balanced on top of each other, and I don't want to pretend the ideas are mine. The turkey comes from Nassim Taleb from his 2007 book, The Black Swan, which is one of those books people quote constantly and, I suspect, actually read about a third of. I've read the whole thing twice, and the turkey is the part that stuck a hook in me and never let go. So, imagine a turkey, a specific turkey, on a farm. And this turkey is, in his own way, a scientist. Because from the very first day, he's collecting data. Every single morning, a farmer walks out to the barn and feeds him. Day 1, the turkey is nervous. Who is this large creature? What does he want? But the food comes, and nothing bad happens. Day 2, same thing. Food. Day 10, food. Day 50. The turkey has now built up a solid empirical data set, and the data is unambiguous. This farmer is a friend. This farmer is a provider. Every morning of my life, without exception, this creature has arrived to care for me. And here's the thing, the turkey isn't being stupid. This is exactly what we would call good reasoning. the evidence keeps piling up on the same side. Day 100. The turkey's confidence in the farmer's benevolence is higher than it has ever been. It is, in fact, at its absolute peak on the afternoon before Thanksgiving. The next morning, the farmer comes out to the barn, and he does not have food. Now, when I first read that, I did what I think you probably just did. I smiled a little. Cute parable. Huh, poor turkey. Note to self, don't be a turkey. And I turned the page. But Taleb doesn't let you off that easy, and neither will I. Because the whole trick of the turkey, the reason it's not just a cute story, is contained in one uncomfortable question. And I want you to actually ask it, not skate past it. What exactly did the turkey do wrong? Think about it. What was his mistake? Should he have refused the food? Should he have been suspicious of 100 consecutive days of kindness? At what point, on which specific morning, would a truly rational turkey have looked at all that beautiful, consistent evidence and concluded, you know what? I think the trend is about to violently reverse. There is no such morning. There's no data point in that entire dataset that points toward the axe. The evidence, right up until the very last second, said the opposite. The turkey reasoned perfectly, and the reasoning killed him. And now, here's where it stops being about turkeys. It's about you. Every prediction you have ever made in your entire life has the exact same logical shape as the turkey's. Every single one. When you flip a light switch and expect the light to come on, you're a turkey. When you sit down in a chair and expect it to hold you, you're a turkey. When you breathe in and expect the air to have oxygen in it, turkey. All of it runs on the same silent engine. It worked before, it'll work again. That engine has a name. Philosophers call it induction. Reasoning from what has happened to what will happen. From the observed to the unobserved. From every sunrise I've ever seen to the one I haven't seen yet. And in the year 1748, in a book with a wonderfully dusty title, An Enquiry Concerning Human Understanding, a Scottish philosopher named David Hume picked that engine up, turned it over in his hands, and found that it wasn't connected to anything. Hume's move is so simple that it's genuinely hard to see how radical it is. And I'll admit, it took me a few tries to really feel it, rather than just understand the words. So let me build it slowly. Hume said, look, when you claim the future will resemble the past, that's an argument, right? It has to be. So what are its premises? Well, premise 1 is basically, in the past, the future always turned out to resemble the past. Every time tomorrow arrived, it behaved like yesterday. Fine, true enough. But now watch what you have to do to get from that premise to your conclusion. You have to assume that this pattern, the pattern of the future resembling the past, will itself continue into the future. You have to assume that the future will keep resembling the past, because in the past it always did. You see the problem. You just used induction to justify induction. You reached into the box to pull out the thing that proves the box works. It's a circle. A perfect, seamless, closed circle. And there is no way out of it. Because every path you try to take out of it turns out to be made of the very thing you're trying to justify. That's it. That's the whole argument. It sounds almost like a cheap trick when you first hear it. It sounds like the kind of thing a clever teenager says to annoy their science teacher. And for a long time, that's roughly how the world treated it. But sit with it for one more second, because the consequence is enormous. It means that the belief the sun will rise tomorrow, the single most well-supported belief in the history of the human species, backed by more evidence than any scientific theory has ever had. That belief is not a conclusion of reason. It cannot be. Reason can't get you there. It's something else. It's a habit. It's an animal expectation, a reflex, a bet your nervous system places automatically. A very, very good bet. Maybe the best bet there is. But a bet, not a fact. A bet. And Hume knew this himself, by the way, which is the part I love. He wasn't some nihilist trying to burn everything down. He said, essentially, look, I've proven that none of this is rationally justified, and then I'm going to go have dinner and play backgammon with my friends and completely forget about it. Because a human being cannot actually live inside this idea for more than a few minutes at a time. Nature won't let you. You'll expect your next breath to have oxygen, no matter what I've just proven. He found the crack in the floor, looked at it, shrugged, and went to dinner. I have not been able to shrug and go to dinner. That's sort of why we're here. Okay, but maybe you're already resisting. Good. You should be. Let me guess the shape of your objection, because it's the same one I had. You want to say, fine, sure, we can't prove it with airtight logic. Philosophers love that game. But come on, we know why the sun rises. It's not just a habit. It's not magic. The Earth spins. Gravity holds us in orbit around the sun. We understand the mechanism. We have the physics. It's not blind pattern matching like the turkey. We have causes. Beautiful. That's exactly the right instinct. And it's exactly where Hume set his second, deeper trap. Because now we have to talk about what a cause even is. And I promise you, it's stranger than you think. Let me give you the most ordinary event I can imagine. A hammer hits a nail, and the nail goes into the wood. Cause and effect, right? About as simple as it gets. The hammer caused the nail to move. So let me ask, why? Why did the hammer drive the nail? And I don't want the lazy answer. I want you to actually follow it down with me. Well, the hammer is a solid object, and the nail is a solid object. And solid things can't pass through each other, so the hammer pushes the nail. Fine. But why can't solid things pass through each other? What is solidity, actually? And here we go down one floor. Solidity is about atoms. The atoms in the hammer meet the atoms in the nail. Okay, but atoms are famously almost entirely empty space. If an atom were the size of a cathedral, the nucleus would be a fly hovering in the middle. So why don't they just pass through each other? All that empty space sliding through all that other empty space. Down another floor. Because of the electron shells, the clouds of electrons around each atom. Okay, but why do the electron shells stop each other? Down another floor. Because like charges repel, negative pushes against negative. And there's a quantum rule, the Pauli exclusion principle, that forbids the electrons from just piling into the same state. Alright, and why do like charges repel? Why does the exclusion principle hold? And here, right here, something quietly horrifying happens. You run out of floors. The honest physicist, at this point, stops and says, that's just how the universe is. Those are the fundamental laws. We can describe them with breathtaking precision. We can write the equations. But why they hold? What enforces them? What makes the electron repel rather than attract on a whim? We don't know. There's no deeper because. That's the bottom. And Hume saw the bottom 2 centuries before we had the electron. This was his real point, the one underneath the turkey. He said, when you watch the hammer hit the nail, what do you actually observe? Be precise. You see the hammer move, then you see the nail move. You see one thing, and then you see another thing. You never, ever see the causing. You never see the connection itself, the little invisible rope of necessity tying the first thing to the second. You just see one and then the other, over and over, until your brain, helpfully, automatically, glues them together and whispers, cause. We don't observe causes. We observe things next to other things. We observe, in Hume's language, constant conjunction. This, then that. This, then that. And the causation is something we add. It's painted on by the mind. It was never out there in the world to begin with. I remember the moment this actually landed for me, as opposed to just being words I could repeat. I was making a cup of coffee, watching the water go from clear to brown, and I thought, I have no idea why that's happening. Not really. I could recite a story about solubility and molecules, but every link in that story bottoms out in another we don't know. The entire universe is like this. Every cause is a curtain, and every time you pull it back, there's just another curtain, all the way down. And then the curtains stop, and behind the last one, there's nothing but a shrug. Paradoxical, right? We built the most powerful predictive machine in the history of life, science, on top of a concept, causation, that we have never once actually observed. But wait, maybe I'm being unfair to us. Maybe I'm treating human reason like it's something special and pure, when really I should be asking a nastier question. What if this whole causation detecting faculty is just broken? What if it fires whether or not there's anything real behind it? Let me tell you about some pigeons. This is one of my favorite experiments in all of science, and it comes from B.F. Skinner in 1948. And once you know about it, you start seeing it everywhere, including in the mirror. Skinner put hungry pigeons in boxes, and he rigged the boxes so that food dropped in at completely random intervals. Totally random. Nothing the pigeon did had any effect on the food whatsoever. The food was going to come when it came, on a timer, indifferent to the bird. Now here's what you'd expect a rational creature to conclude. Nothing I do matters. The food is random. I'll just wait. That is not what the pigeons did. Not even close. What happened was that whatever a pigeon happened to be doing right before the food arrived, the food arrives, and the pigeon's little brain does exactly what our brains do. It glues the two events together. This, then that. So the pigeon starts doing that thing again. And sometimes, by pure chance, food comes again. Now it's locked in. Skinner watched pigeons develop full-blown rituals. One bird turned counterclockwise circles between feedings, around and around. Another kept thrusting its head into an empty corner. Another developed a strange pendulum sway of the head and body. Each bird had invented its own private religion, its own theory of what causes the food. And every one of those theories was completely, utterly false. The food was random. The dance did nothing. The pigeons had done exactly what the turkey did, exactly what Hume said we all do. They observed a constant conjunction. I turned left, then food came. and their brains painted causation onto pure noise. Now, please, do the uncomfortable thing with me. Look at us. We do not have a 13th floor in most tall buildings because a large fraction of the human species believes a number is dangerous. Athletes wear the same unwashed socks through a winning streak because some part of them has decided the socks are causing the wins. We knock on wood. We say a thing out loud and then immediately touch something to un-jinx it. Entire civilizations have cut open animals to read the future in their livers, or sacrificed people on top of pyramids to make sure the sun would come back after an eclipse. And it did come back, every time, which of course only proved the sacrifice was working. We are, every one of us, a slightly more sophisticated Skinner pigeon. Causation hallucinating machines. That's not an insult, it's an engineering description. We are pattern detectors so aggressive that we detect patterns that aren't there. Because, and this is the beautiful, brutal logic of it, a creature that sees too many patterns wastes some energy on rituals. But a creature that sees too few patterns misses the tiger in the grass and dies. Evolution tuned us to over-detect. It was cheaper to be a superstitious survivor than a skeptical corpse. So now the question turns, and it turns into something genuinely disturbing. If our causation detector fires on pure noise, and if we can't tell from the inside whether it's tracking something real or just dancing like a pigeon, then how do we know science itself isn't the grandest, most successful superstition of them all? A ritual so refined, so productive, so predictive, that it has fooled us completely into thinking we've touched the machinery of the world, when maybe we've just gotten very, very good at turning left before the food comes. I'll give you a few seconds to let that one sit. Because I felt genuinely sick when I first followed it this far. And I think you should get to feel that too. And if this is the kind of thought that follows you around for a couple of days after you hear it, the kind of small, cold idea that keeps surfacing while you're doing the dishes, then honestly, sticking around this channel is probably a good move. Because down where we're headed next, it gets stranger, not tamer. And I'd hate for you to miss the part where the physicists show up. All right, onward. It gets worse before it gets... No, let me be honest. It just gets worse. Here's the point where you'd expect me to say, but science saves us. Here's where the reassuring music should come in. And I really wish it worked that way. Because when physics finally shows up to this conversation, it does not rescue Hume. It hands him a bigger hammer. Let me tell you what Einstein did to the word now. In 1905, Einstein published Special Relativity, and one of the things it quietly destroyed was something you have never once questioned in your entire life. The idea that there's a single, universal, present moment. A now that everyone in the universe shares. That when I say two things are happening at the same time, that phrase means something absolute, something everyone would agree on. It doesn't. Let me show you with the classic picture, and try to actually see it, don't just nod. Imagine a very long train, moving very fast, and you're standing on the platform watching it go by. And imagine two bolts of lightning strike at the exact same instant, one at the front of the train, one at the back. From where you stand on the platform, dead center, you see both flashes arrive together. Simultaneous, obviously. But now think about your friend, sitting in the exact middle of that speeding train. The train is rushing forward, toward the front flash, away from the backflash, so the light from the front reaches her a hair sooner, and the light from the back reaches her a hair later. From inside the train, the front lightning struck first. Not because anyone's eyes are tricking them, because, and this is the part that broke everyone's brain in 1905, including physicists, there is no fact of the matter about which one really happened first. Both are correct. The order of the two events genuinely depends on who's asking. Simultaneity isn't a feature of the universe. It's a feature of your point of view. Now let me be careful and honest here, because I've seen people overstate this, and I don't want to be one of them. Relativity does not let you see an effect before its cause. If two events are actually connected, if one really can influence the other, every observer in the universe will agree on their order. Physics protects real cause and effect. It's not total chaos. But for events that are far enough apart, events that can't touch each other, the order genuinely dissolves. The universal now, the thing your entire intuitive picture of reality is built on, the shared present tense we all assume we're living in together, that turns out to be a comfortable illusion. There is no cosmic clock. There is no now. There's just your now and hers, and they don't match, and neither one is the real one. I remember reading that and putting the book down and looking around my room and thinking, I have never, for 1 second of my life, doubted that this moment I'm in is the moment everyone is in. And it isn't. It just isn't. That's not philosophy. That's not a thought experiment. That's the actual physics, confirmed 10,000 ways. The physics your GPS satellites correct for every day, or they'd send you into the wrong ocean. So here's where we stand at the halfway point. Logic can't justify prediction. That's Hume. Causation is something our minds paint on, and we can't be sure we're not just superstitious pigeons. That's Skinner. And the clean, shared, ticking universe where cause neatly precedes effect for everyone, that's already gone, dissolved by Einstein a century ago. And yet the sun keeps rising. And yet the light comes on when you flip the switch. Something is holding. Something out there is deeply, reliably regular, even if we can't justify our faith in it, and can't even agree on what time it is. So what is it? What's actually doing the holding? And this is the turn. This is where the whole video quietly becomes about something else. Because there's a counterattack. A good one. The best defenders of science have an answer to Hume, and I want to give it to you at full strength, because for a little while, I thought it worked. And the way it fails is the most interesting thing in this entire story. The counterattack goes like this, and it comes mainly from Karl Popper in his 1963 book, Conjectures and Refutations. And it's been sharpened since by physicists like David Deutsch. They say, Hume, you're attacking a straw man. You think science works by piling up observations and generalizing. The sun rose, the sun rose, the sun rose, therefore the sun will rise. But that's not what real science does. Real science doesn't crawl up from a heap of sunrises. It leaps. It invents deep, bold, explanatory theories. Guesses, really. Brilliant guesses about the hidden machinery of the world. And then it tries with everything it has to prove those guesses wrong. We don't believe the sun will rise tomorrow because it rose a billion times. We believe it because we have a theory. Gravity, orbital mechanics, general relativity, that explains why it rises, that ties the sunrise to the mass of the sun and the motion of the Earth and the geometry of spacetime. A theory so tightly woven that for the sun to fail to rise, an enormous amount of physics that we've tested to absurd precision would all have to be wrong at once. The turkey had no theory. The turkey just had a pile of days. We have an explanation. That's the difference. That's what lifts us out of the barn. And I have to tell you, the first few times I turned this over, I felt relief. Real relief. Yes, that's it. We're not turkeys. We're not pigeons. We have explanations. We have understanding. We have the actual mechanism. The crack in the floor is patched. And then I asked one more question. Just one. And the floor opened right back up. Why do you trust the theory? Why do you trust general relativity? Why do you trust that gravity will behave tomorrow the way it behaved today? And the answer, the only possible answer, is because it always has. Because every test we've ever run, it passed. Because the equations kept working morning after morning, experiment after experiment. Which is induction. The exact same move. You've just done the turkey's reasoning one floor down. Instead of trusting the sunrise because it always happened, you're trusting the law behind the sunrise because it always held. But it's the identical bet. It's the identical circle. You haven't escaped Hume. You've just relocated him. He's not standing on the surface anymore, out among the sunrises. He's moved into the basement. He's now standing underneath the laws of physics themselves. And this is the moment the video changed for me, and I hope it's changing for you right now. Because I thought I was making a video about whether the sun will rise. But that's not the real question. The real question, the one hiding underneath, is this. Are the laws of physics themselves guaranteed to hold? Is there anything at all, that forces the universe to keep obeying its own rules from one moment to the next? Or is the regularity of the laws of nature just one more constant conjunction, one more this then that our pigeon brains have promoted to the status of iron necessity? And once you've asked that question, there's only one way to actually go looking for an answer. You can't settle it with philosophy. You have to go and find the place, if there is one, where the universe's own rules physically break down. A real place, a location, somewhere in the actual cosmos where predictability itself fails. And it turns out, there might be exactly such a place. And we can even tell you where to point the telescope. We have to talk about black holes now. Not the black hole from the movies, the black hole as a philosophical crime scene. Because a black hole is the one place in the universe where physics has been caught, red-handed, apparently destroying the very thing that makes prediction possible in the first place. And to understand why, I need to give you two ideas and then collide them and watch what breaks. This is the part I've been building toward. Pay attention to this next stretch, because it's where the philosophy stops being a game. Idea number one. It's called the no-hair theorem, and it's one of the strangest results in physics. Here's what it says. Take a black hole, any black hole. The theorem says that a black hole can be completely, totally described by just three numbers: its mass, its electric charge, and how fast it's spinning. That's it. That's everything there is to know about it. Physicists say a black hole has no hair, meaning no extra features, no individuality, no details. Now let me show you why that's a catastrophe, with a thought experiment I genuinely love for how absurd it sounds. Suppose I take a ton of iron, cold, gray, industrial iron, and I let it collapse into a black hole. And suppose you take a ton of turtles, live turtles, a whole squirming ton of them, and you let them collapse into a black hole. Same mass, no charge, no spin in both cases. According to the no-hair theorem, your turtle black hole and my iron black hole are identical. Not similar, identical. There is no measurement, no experiment, nothing you could ever do from the outside that could tell them apart. The turtles are gone. Not just dead, gone as information. The universe retains no record whatsoever that there was ever anything turtle-shaped about one of them. All the intricate, specific, staggeringly detailed information about a ton of living turtles, every cell, every shell pattern, every position of every atom, has been crushed down into 3 numbers. And you might say, so what? The information is just hidden inside, past the point of no return, locked in a vault we can't open, unreachable, but still there. And for a while, that was the comfortable answer. Hidden, not destroyed. And then Stephen Hawking blew up the vault. Idea number 2, and this is Hawking's masterpiece, 1974. Everyone thinks black holes are eternal. They're not. Hawking proved, using quantum mechanics, that black holes are not perfectly black at all. They glow. Very, very faintly, they leak radiation out into space. We call it Hawking radiation now. And because they're leaking, they're losing mass. And because they're losing mass, over unimaginable stretches of time, they evaporate. They shrink. They fade. And eventually, they wink out of existence entirely. Now let me give you the scale, because the numbers here are a kind of poetry. A black hole with the mass of our sun glows at a temperature of about 60 billionths of 1 degree above absolute zero, colder than deep space. So faint, it's almost a rounding error against nothing. And at that rate, for it to fully evaporate would take, give or take, a number of years with 67 zeros after it. The universe right now is about 14 billion years old, a number with a mere 10 zeros. So the black hole outlives the current age of the cosmos by a factor so vast that human language doesn't really have a way to hold it. But, and this is the whole point, it is not forever. Given enough time, and eventually there is enough time, the black hole disappears completely. It leaves behind only that faint haze of radiation drifting off into the dark. And now we collide the two ideas, and you should feel the collision. The turtles went in. The information about the turtles was crushed down to nothing observable. But at least, we told ourselves, it was still in there. Then the black hole slowly evaporated away into radiation. And Hawking's calculation said something terrifying about that radiation. It's thermal. It's featureless. It's just heat. It carries no information about what fell in. Iron black hole, turtle black hole. They evaporate into the exact same characterless glow. So follow the turtles. They fell in. The black hole holding them evaporated. And when the last of it is gone, the turtles are gone. Not hidden anymore. Gone. The information didn't move somewhere. It didn't leak out in the radiation. It was subtracted from the universe. Erased. As if it had never been. And maybe you're thinking, Okay, that's sad for the turtles, but why is this the crack at the bottom of everything? Here's why. Because the deepest principle in all of physics, deeper than gravity, deeper than any particular force, is that information is never destroyed. In principle, the present contains a perfect record of the past and a perfect blueprint of the future. If you knew the exact state of the universe right now, in complete detail, the laws of physics would let you run the film backward to any moment that ever was, and forward to any moment that ever will be. That two-way, perfect, unbroken accounting is what determinism actually means. It's the reason prediction is possible at all. It is the thing under the sunrise. And a black hole appears to shred it. A black hole takes a perfect record and turns it into featureless heat and blows it away. If that's true, if information really is destroyed, then the universe does not keep a perfect ledger. The past is not fully recoverable. And if the past can be erased, then the future is not fully written either. There's a leak in reality. A place where the accounting fails. A place where, physically, actually, not just philosophically, the machinery of prediction breaks. That is Hume's crack. But now it's not an argument in a book. It's a location. It has coordinates. You could point a telescope at it. This is not some fringe idea I'm dramatizing. This kicked off one of the longest, most serious intellectual wars in the history of modern physics. And if you want the story told from the inside, by a man who was in the trenches of it, read Leonard Suskind's 2008 book, The Black Hole War. It's one of the best popular physics books ever written, partly because Suskind is honest about how personal it got, how much it kept him up at night. On one side, Stephen Hawking, and a lot of people who did general relativity for a living. Their position? The information is destroyed, full stop. The math says so. Reality has a hole in it, and we'll just have to live with the fact that the universe forgets. On the other side, Leonard Susskind and the Dutch physicist Gerard 't Hooft, and eventually most of the people who did quantum mechanics for a living. Their position? Absolutely not. Information cannot be destroyed. That principle is more sacred than black holes. If black holes seem to destroy it, then we don't understand black holes, and we'd rather rebuild our entire picture of space and time than give up the ledger. This war went on for 30 years. 30 years. These are some of the most brilliant people who have ever lived. And for 3 decades, they genuinely could not agree on whether the universe destroys information. Which is to say, they could not agree on whether the bottom of reality holds. Sit with the strangeness of that. For 30 years, the question of whether determinism has a hole in it was live, open, unsettled. Not a philosophy seminar puzzle, a working problem, argued at conferences, in real physics. And here's the twist, and I love this twist, because it's so much stranger than either side expected. The war mostly ended, and the information is preserved side mostly won. Hawking himself eventually conceded, in 2004, at a conference in Dublin, in front of everyone. But the price of saving the ledger was staggering. To keep information from being destroyed, physics had to accept an idea that makes the turtles look boring. The idea is called holography, and it says, roughly, that all the information that appears to be inside a volume of space is actually encoded on the two-dimensional surface around it. That our three-dimensional reality might be, in some precise mathematical sense, a projection of information written on a distant surface, the way a hologram sits on a flat piece of film. Read that again. To save the principle that the universe keeps a perfect record, our best physicists had to seriously entertain that the space you're sitting in right now, its depth, its three-dimensionality, the very fact that things are inside other things, might be a kind of encoding, a holographic image of information stored somewhere else. They defended the floor of reality by discovering that the floor is a hologram. So no, they didn't hand Hume a clean victory. The ledger, it seems, holds. But look at what it cost to make it hold. And look at the fact that it was ever in doubt at all. We went looking for the one place in the universe where predictability might physically break. And we found it, and staring into it forced us to conclude that reality is even less like the solid, dependable, common-sense world than the turkey ever imagined. The floor holds, but the floor is not a floor. It's a projection. And that should make you deeply, deeply humble about the next sunrise. Because it means that the regularity we lean on, the reliability of the laws themselves, sits on top of a substrate so alien that the people who understand it best describe our whole reality as a hologram and are not being poetic. They mean it literally. So let me pull the last thread, the one I promised at the very beginning would take something from you. We've established that we can't logically justify prediction. We've established that causation is painted on by minds that also paint it on to pure noise. We've established that there's no shared now. We've established that trusting the laws of physics is just Hume's circle, one floor down. And we've established that the universe contains at least one place, black holes, where the deepest principle of all, the perfect ledger, nearly failed, and was rescued only by discovering that reality is a hologram. Now here's the final question, and it's the one I can't stop thinking about, the one that ruined a few of my own nights. Every single thing we've talked about, every reassurance, every rescue, has assumed one thing. It has assumed that the universe is the kind of thing that has to obey causes, that effects need causes, that things need reasons to happen. That's the bedrock under all of it. But is that even true? Because listen to what our own cosmology says about the beginning. When you ask a physicist what caused the Big Bang, what came before it, what set it off, you get a very strange answer. And Stephen Hawking gives it beautifully in his last book, Brief Answers to the Big Questions, from 2018. He says the question has no meaning. There was no before. Time itself began at the Big Bang. So asking what happened before it is like asking what lies south of the South Pole. There's no there. The universe, on this view, did not have a cause. It was not made to happen by some prior event. It simply began, uncaused, out of nothing. And other serious cosmologists, Alexander Vilenkin, Lawrence Krauss, have built entire careers on versions of exactly this idea. A universe that quantum tunnels into existence from no prior state, from literally nothing, for no reason, without a cause. Now hold that next to Hume, and feel the two ideas locked together, because this is the whole video collapsing into a single point.
Hume proved that causation is not a necessary connection out in the world. It's just constant conjunction, this, then that, a pattern we observe and trust. It's not a law with teeth, nothing forces it. And now, our best cosmology tells us that the single most important event in the history of everything, the beginning of the universe itself, happened with no cause at all. Which means causation isn't fundamental.
It's not woven into the fabric of reality as an unbreakable rule. It's a local habit, a regularity that has held, so far, inside this universe for these 14 billion years. A very reliable pattern. The most reliable pattern there is. But a pattern, not a law, not a guarantee. A this then that, all the way down, that even the universe itself did not obey at the moment it was born. And so, here is the thought I'll leave you with. Here is the thing I took.
If the universe could begin without a cause, if a whole cosmos can simply come into being for no reason, obeying nothing, answering to nothing, then tell me, what exactly forbids it from ending the same way? What law, what force, what principle guarantees that the regularity holds tomorrow when no regularity governed its beginning? The honest answer, the one Hume gave us and physics has never overturned, is nothing. Nothing forbids it. There is no guarantee. There never was. There was only the habit, the astonishing, life-sustaining, utterly ungrounded habit of the universe repeating itself, morning after morning after morning, for reasons it does not have. The turkey was fed every morning of his life, and reasoned perfectly, and it did not save him. We have watched the sun rise every morning of ours, and we reason exactly as well as the turkey did. No better. Stephen Hawking, when he finally conceded the black hole war in 2004, didn't just say the words. He paid up on a bet he'd made with a physicist named John Preskill years earlier. The deal was that the loser would give the winner an encyclopedia, a book, specifically a reference work, because the whole fight had been about whether information can be recovered. And Hawking, ever the showman, handed Preskill an encyclopedia and remarked that he was giving him a volume from which information can be pulled out at will, whenever you like. It was a joke. It was also, if you think about it, the entire terror of this video folded into a gift. Because the encyclopedia works. You can open it any day and find the same words in the same order, for one reason and one reason only, because it always has. I don't know if the sun will rise on the 3rd of January in the year 4159. I've told you the truth. I can't prove it will, and you can't prove it won't. And now neither of us can unknow that the reasons we always trusted turn out to reach down into the dark and find nothing but a habit and a hologram and a universe that began for no reason at all. But I'll be honest with you, the way I promised at the start. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to expect the sun anyway. I can't help it. Nature won't let me do otherwise, any more than it let Hume. I'll expect it completely. I just won't call it knowledge anymore. I'll call it what it is. A bet. Sleep well.